Hi, everyone. We'll get started here in just a minute. Want to give an opportunity for a few more people to arrive. Okay, we'll go ahead, excuse me, we'll go ahead and get started. So hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on an overview of Creo Plus. My name is Nick Exposito, Marketing Director here at TriStar, and I'm very pleased to introduce our presenter, Mark Fisher from PTC. Before we get started, I just wanted to do some quick bookkeeping and mention that a complimentary recording of this webinar will be sent to everyone who registered automatically, as well as be available on our website YouTube channel shortly after the presentation. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to leave them in the chat. We'll hold a brief QA at the end of the presentation. But before I pass it over, I just want to briefly go over TriStar for any of you not familiar with us or what we do. At TriStar, we specialize in helping manufacturing companies adopt systems and processes to enable better and more efficient product development. We achieve this by being the largest value-added reseller for PTC products and services worldwide, with headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona, and representatives and engineers throughout North America, Canada, and Mexico. We've been in business for over 25 years, and we're experts in CAD, data management, PLM, and product development. We also have a large assortment of custom solutions, services, and support packages tailored to specific requirements and needs. And so with all that, just give us one moment and I'm going to pass the reins over to our presenter, Mark Fisher. Right, Mark? It's all yours. Bear with us a few moments here, folks. Looks like we have a little bit of technical difficulty. Um, let's see here. Sorry for the delay, folks. We are trying to figure out, looks like Mark is having a few issues. Um, I think we have figured out the problem, guys. Just let's see here. Okay, Mark, you are now an organizer.
There we go.
Sorry about
Okay.
sorry about that, folks.
All right, let me just share my screen and we'll kick in. I apologize for that all, but hopefully the wait certainly will be worth it. So let me share. So again, as Nick had mentioned, my name is Mark Fisher, Senior Director here at PTC within the CAD Product Management team. It certainly is a pleasure to speak with you all today about Creo Plus, our strategy, and more importantly, the roadmap going forward. This is a similar presentation that I've given, whether it was at LiveWorks last year, certainly at the user conference a few months ago. But hopefully this is information either that you've addressed or heard, and hopefully this addresses and answers some of the questions that you have. But the point of this, or where I'd like to begin, is kind of discuss the journey PTC is going through around driving digital transformation for you and certainly your colleagues, your company. We look at PTC, we look at the SaaS platform and PTC SaaS solutions as a way to expedite and really drive digital transformation. Certainly not a new concept. We see this from a lot of global companies that are helping their customers, but looking at how SaaS can help achieve faster time to market, minimizing the burdens of running applications on premises. How do we deal with updates, migrations, those types of things? And it's really, PTC's efforts to enhance our SaaS offerings of our flagship products to achieve that. What you see on the screen is kind of an image of really our SaaS backbone, what we call PTC Atlas. It is our unified platform that we're now connecting all our flagship products to. Atlas came through the acquisition of Onshape. Not that Atlas is Onshape, but Atlas is the SaaS platform for which Onshape uses, and now other applications as well, like Creo, Windchill, Vuforia, etc. And what we're doing is we're harnessing that platform to provide you, the tools that you're familiar with, Creo in this case, but in a more optimized, more efficient means of distribution, administration, introducing new services and capabilities to enhance the user experience. When we talk about Creo, and more importantly, we talk about Creo Plus, the Plus is just indicative of the SaaS offering of that given solution. So I could say Creo Plus, I could say Vuforia Plus, Windchill Plus, etc. Those are just the SaaS offerings of the flagship products. I should also note that as we move down this journey of introducing a comprehensive SaaS offerings of our flagship products, that we have no intention certainly to eliminate or deprecate any of the online products that you use today. So Creo as an on-prem solution will continue. In fact, we have Creo 11 on the horizon to be released. We're running a sneak peek of that right now, and certainly if there's interest there, we can help you get connected. But the Plus offering is, as I said, is the representation of that, but connected to the SaaS platform. Now, we talk about SaaS and we talk about digital transformation, and certainly if you do a search on the benefits of SaaS, you may come up with these 6 types of benefits. And in fact, we've looked at these as we implemented Creo Plus or Creo into a SaaS offering as Creo Plus, in how we can harness these benefits. And in our opinion, my opinion, these are really going to be that transformational efforts that will help improve you, your administrators, and your overall company. We talk about availability and mobility. We want to make Creo Plus accessible to a user on their machine, in their office, or on the go. The ability to leverage it, from anywhere, any machine, at any time. But more importantly, make it available and mobile with new capabilities, new services, new functionality. A big aspect of SaaS is this notion of lower total cost of ownership. And I would say that today, with our offering of Creo Plus, we're checking that box. But it is going to be something that will continue to evolve as we go forward. And when I talk about the future of Creo Plus and aspects such as streaming, we could start to really harness what that really means. Again, that lower total cost of ownership. For me, when I look at a software, Creo in this case, but frankly, any application, there are a lot of hidden costs associated to running the application. It's not just the cost of the license. It's the administration, it's the security, it's the hardware you're running it on, both in the back end from a server perspective and certainly from an end user's perspective. But it's all these hidden costs that lead to, what is the cost of running application X within your organization? And so what we are trying to do is harness the benefits of SaaS to reduce that total cost, whether it's hidden or physical costs, as we go forward. And again, as you see with the capabilities that we're introducing today, and certainly on the roadmap going forward, we're going to start to see that waterline lower. Certainly security and scalability is important, and we do want to provide a very secure, tight, and controlled environment. More importantly, we want to also deal with scalability. Today, you have X number of engineers. You hopefully will be hiring more. Well, how do you scale the solution to meet the needs of your user community? And so by providing a centralized administrative control, we can now be able to efficiently, in a secure way, deploy, update, and scale, Creo certainly across the organization. We talk about accelerating innovation, and really, what does that mean, right? Today with on-prem, we release Creo once a year. Obviously in the past it was many years, but today it's once a year. And again, you're only able to capitalize on the enhancements. In essence, the investment you had in PTC, which turns into enhancements that go into the product, you're only able to leverage those if you move to that given release that has that functionality in it. As I mentioned, Creo 11 is on the doorstep to be released. Well, you'll only be able to utilize the benefits of Creo 11 if you move to it. What we want to do is kind of change that narrative. And by providing a SaaS solution where we are providing the latest and greatest release of Creo Plus to you and your users, you're already getting access to the latest and greatest capability. And in some cases, that may not even be available on-prem yet. So this accelerating innovation allows you, as I said, to capitalize on the investment you've made and utilize certainly the benefits that exist. We do realize that this is not a siloed environment. We do want to have our users collaborate together. So how do you do that in a more optimized manner? And certainly the services that we've introduced in Creo Plus will lend that ability. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. Bottom line, though, we want to have a better experience for you, for your users, your administrators, your organization, to really take advantage of the extent that Creo Plus can offer, and certainly continue to take advantage of the capabilities that come out forward. So these are the benefits. Again, we could generalize them, but we've harnessed them into how we've implemented Creo Plus, and in essence, what you have access to today. So I've talked about Creo Plus a lot. I talked about these services. I guess really the bottom line is I want to stress that Creo is Creo at the end of the day. Okay, what you've used historically on-prem is no different than what Creo Plus is going to offer. So the rich power, the capabilities, all the new functionality that you've taken advantage of is going to be accessible in the SaaS offering of Creo, in this case, Creo Plus. But what it adds is the layer of these cloud-based services that are going to then complement the power and the functionality of Creo to really improve that usability, productivity, and we say streamlining the administrative and end user experience. But Creo, as I said, is the same application which you've utilize every day. We treat it again as the latest release of Creo. So there is no translation required. Data you created, legacy data you have, can be utilized no different than taking data that was created in Creo 4 and opening it up in Creo 9. Again, all that data is going to be upwards compatible. And again, to stress, all the core capabilities are the same. You shouldn't experience a different environment. It'll look and feel exactly the same. But because we're now connected to the cloud, we're connected to the Atlas SaaS platform, we are now evolving and introducing new services, and we'll continue to introduce new services that you'll be able to take advantage of today, tomorrow, and in the future. Okay, so again, just level setting. Creo is Creo. Creo Plus is no different than Creo on-prem, but with that added layer of these cloud-based services that really differentiates itself. Now, when we launched Creo Plus, and we launched Creo Plus in May of this year, and we had a large announcement at LiveWorks, and certainly I presented there, there were two main areas that we focused on. The first one is what I'm showing on the screen called the PTC Control Center. But think of that as more from an administrative perspective, tools to help the administrator manage their organization. Now, yes, that will benefit the end users at the end of the day because of how Creo is deployed, how Creo is updated, and so forth. But this is really the portal for the admin to be effective in managing their global organization. So from a central administration, from a central portal, the admin will be able to start to manage, their users, define their users into specific groups, whether it's engineering, simulation, manufacturing, define specific configurations for each of those groups. So simulation may use a different config.pro and SUP than engineering, but really tailor that experience and then invite users into each of those groups. So I may be a member of simulation and I may be a member of engineering, for example. And I'll be able to start up Creo in either of those modes and have a different experience based upon how the administrative has set that up. The other big thing, though, is license management. Now, again, as an end user, may not necessarily care too much about that, but as an admin, you certainly do. So today on-prem, we use FlexLM, and you generate your license and you tie it and you connect it to your end user's product, Creo on-prem. In this case, there is no FlexLM. There is no license manager per se. What we've done is introduced a new license service that's running in Atlas that now can effectively, the admin assign entitlements to users, and then the user is able to take advantage of those. There is no downloading license files and all the manual process that one might experience today with on-prem. Now, connected to the license, the license service, connected to the group and the profiles and users that may be connected to that, Creo now is going to be automatically deployed to your end users' machines. No longer do you necessarily need to create a deployment image. First, download the CD image, create a deployment image, and then push it out and maintain that updated throughout the use of the product. In this case, everything is automated, transparent, frankly, to the user, but automated for the admin, both with the initial deployment and the updates as well. Lastly, the big aspect here is around usage, telemetry, knowledge of how my organization is using my licenses or our licenses of Creo. So there is this rich telemetry component of the admin portal that will allow the admin to understand who's using what, where, and on a global basis. Okay. Now, when we made the change for Creo Plus, and again, this is specific to Plus. This does not influence what happens with on-prem. Just want to clarify. What we needed to do is look at different aspects. Really looking at the utilization of licenses, Creo in general. And this helped in determining how we would repackage Creo Plus for our customers. We looked at this scenario that, of Performance Advisor data collected, 65% of the users, that companies that were submitting, but users that were using Creo on-prem were deemed as, again, frequent users. Let's talk about them as using the breadth of the product and use it every day. So I'm on the system, 5-6 hours a day, every day, using the breadth of functionality. We then say that there's a good percentage, 20% give or take, of infrequent users, still using the breadth of the functionality, but they may be using it once a week, twice a week, every other week, once a month, and so forth. But then more importantly, we found a percentage of users, we call it, we'll say light users, but these were individuals that weren't iterating a design. They were reviewing a design, they were looking at a design, maybe performing a simulation, they may be creating an exploded state. They were doing something in Creo, but they weren't iterating it. And so we'll talk about these as light users. And it's an important distinction between these three buckets because this helped us create, new package offerings for Creo Plus, where we look at not just, again, the users that use Creo and make, directional changes, iterations, but then also those that are simply there to analyze, view, explore what was happening. And so based on these three personas, we then started to look at this notion of, how do we adapt to SaaS-based license entitlements? And so again, we talk about the frequent user, we talk about the infrequent user. And if I expand from a frequent user perspective, we're now introducing named user license entitlements. And we talk about them as Design Essentials, Design Advanced, Design Advanced Professional. Again, same license configuration as used on-prem, which you're using, frankly, today. But what we're doing now is introducing them as named user entitlements for the frequent user. We also have a set of individual extensions that are named user extensions. So let's say, for example, I'm going to assign Nick, who's my expert user, both in traditional Creo, but then let's say manufacturing. I'm going to assign Nick the Design Advanced Professional entitlement. That's Nick's license. That's Nick's license today, tomorrow, and in the future. But more importantly, I'm also going to assign Nick the complete manufacturing extension because he's my manufacturing person. So Nick will have Design Advanced Professional because I assigned it to him, and complete manufacturing extension, again, because I assigned it to him. Now, if Jose joins, well, maybe I could assign him a Design Essentials. He's a new engineer. But the point is, these named user extensions are assigned to that individual, and they will have that license until I, as an admin, will remove that from them. But they know today, tomorrow, in the future, they'll have it. We also have this Creo Plus Explorer, and this is new to Creo Plus. This is that for that light user persona I just mentioned a moment ago, someone that's not iterating but wants to explore. This will give them access to Creo. It's a named user entitlement, of course, but it'll give them access to Creo where they can retrieve, open, perform operations. They just can't save the model back to Windchill or to wherever they may be saving it to. They have full access to everything. They just cannot save. When we talk about infrequent users, then it's just a matter of saying, okay, this is now only one license to run, Design Advanced Shared. This is, T2, it's the same capability, but what this will do is allow multiple users to be assigned this entitlement and then be able to use it when they need it, but it is going to be locked to that individual for 24 hours. So think of frequent user, named user, one-to-one relationship. Infrequent user or the shared entitlement is many to one. Okay, it's probably analogous to the concurrent license usage as is today on-prem. Now we also have a whole breadth of other, we'll say floating options, and these are all the licenses that are available that can be grabbed by either a frequent user or an infrequent user. Grabbed, release, no different than today with on-prem Creo. But these are going to be associated to one of either the named user entitlement or the shared entitlement and utilized, in the given session of Creo. It's important to state the packaging because it is different than what traditionally is, on-prem Creo. Now, just for purposes of demonstration, here is a view of the admin portal. So I'm an admin, I'm logging into the admin portal via browser. And simply what I'm showing is the home page. And the home page is going to give me as an admin, the control for my global organization. I could do this, everything for my org from the confines of, my desk in a browser. So in this case, we have things like, people where we can look at the people that we've invited in. So Nick or Jose or whoever. We could see the specific licenses that we have. We can also look at the profiles, and I'll explain these as we go through. So in this case, what I'm going to do is click on people. And in this case, I can now see 3 people, Alex, Mark, and Nihal. What I'm going to do is select Alex, and I'm now going to assign him a specific entitlement, Creo Design Essentials, and specific named user extensions. These are what he will be using every day. Those are now assigned to him. I'm now going to go to the profile, and the profile tab is where we can start to create our groups. On the screen, I have manufacturing simulation. I'm actually going to create one called engineering now. And this is, as I said before, the profile or this group is where we would define specific configurations that might be pertinent, in this case, to engineering. So once I then add the name, I'm going to now choose from the list of people that are in the organization. And now I could start to define my profile. So in this case, I'm going to now create a pointer for Creo Plus running as engineering to look at this engineering config folder configuration file path that is going to now contain certain configurations, config.pro, config.sup, your library files, toolkit applications, whatever the case may be. And once that's defined, I could then say, okay, well then what specific floating options may be important to engineering? I don't need to have additive manufacturing, but maybe I want to have simulation, whatever the case may be. So I can add specific floating options to this given profile group that when I launch with now engineering, I would have those floating options available to me versus if I start off with manufacturing as an example. Once this is done, now that profile is created. And now I would now see it in the list. And then based upon the users that have been added, they can now choose, do I want to start off as engineering, manufacturing, or simulation? So from an administrative perspective, very simple, easy to administer, and then allow the end users to, reap the benefits of that experience. So in this case, I'm now logged in as Alex. I go into the user portal. So there's a user portal. I would download the PTC Control Center. This would launch and install a small utility called the Control Center on their machine. This does not need admin privileges. Let me pause this for a moment. This does not need admin privileges. It does get installed in the user profile directory, which is important because as updates come out, they will certainly be received and updated accordingly. But once the Control Center is installed, the user authenticates into the Control Center, then the Control Center is simply going to say, okay, Alex, what group are you a member of? What entitlements has the admin given you? And then Creo will almost do a custom install based upon what they have the rights to use installed on his local machine. So in this case, he'll log in with his username and password, and then the Control Center will be launched in the taskbar. And then immediately it will start to install the base component and then the advanced components based on the entitlements that he's been given. Once that's done, and it should take a few minutes, he will be able now to then run Creo Plus, from his desktop. So our initial deployment of Creo Plus is a thick client. It is going to be installed locally, but it's going to be automated, deployed, and updated from the Atlas Control Center, or from the portal itself. So in this case now, Creo Plus is launched. We do see it's Creo Plus. Yes, we have additional tools in here that's pertinent to the Plus offering versus what might be available, with on-prem. Now, I talked about, let me blow this out here. I talked about that Creo Plus is always on the latest release. We release a new build of Creo Plus. We just actually released the latest build yesterday, but we release it every quarter. So every quarter, your users, your company should expect an updated build of Creo Plus. Now, we understand that there are concerns, hey, before I move to a release, I got to validate it. I got to test it. I got to make sure things work, whether configurations, whether toolkit applications, and so forth. And so we do take that into account. And so what we do is, as we are launching, let's say build X, you have 3 months duration for it. In fact, you really have 4 months. And what I mean by that is when we release build X, we're starting to work on build Y. We're starting to develop that. at a point in time where it reaches a level of quality based on our strict quality policies, what we're going to do is we're going to release it to you admins, but also who your admin designates as validators. And what I mean by that is the admin now will be able to test that preview release or the next release before it is actually pushed out to all users. So during that 4-week period, while everyone's using BuildX in production, the admin or the admin designated validators can actually update to the preview build of Y to actually do the testing on it and test configurations, test toolkit applications, test workflows, and what have you. What's important here is we're also going to inform you what has changed in build X versus build Y. What's the new functionality? What bugs have we resolved? What APIs we may have introduced. So we're going to give you clear information ahead of time so that you shouldn't have to spend months and months to test it, but do very focused testing on the things that have changed. Okay, that's an important point here. But at the end of the day, you'll have 4 weeks to test before we get to a level of quality, which is also important. That after the 4 weeks, if there are some issues, well, we'll make it 5 weeks. But the point is, what we want to do is get to a level of quality, listen to our admins that might have discovered a potential issue, let's say during the 4-week period. We'll then resolve it and we'll fix it. But once we get to a level of quality, we're actually going to push Build Y now out to all users. Everyone will get it automatically. And then while Build Y is out there, we're going to work on Build Z. And again, there will be a 4-week period. But this notion of early visibility is going to be key in having you be able to test and validate before it gets pushed out to all your users. Okay. The other big area that we focused on is around real-time collaboration. I mentioned that was one of the benefits that we talked about at the very beginning. We want you as users, our customers, to be able to collaborate together. More importantly, be able to collaborate in a real-time manner. And so leveraging tools and services that are available, through Atlas, this now is a possibility. So this is a concept where now I, as a user, that has been given an entitlement and added to a profile group, and I'm launching Creo Plus with engineering, for example, based on specific configurations. I'm now going to create a collaboration session. I'm going to say, listen, I want to work on this assembly, and in fact, I need my peers to also participate. So instead of sort of the ad hoc, I'm going to check it out of Windchill, I'm going to work on it, and the only way that you're able to see it is I got to update it or check it back in, and then you can see it. In this concept, that doesn't exist. In fact, what it does is we provide a more innovative approach to addressing this, in such that now by me creating a collaboration session, I can now invite members of my organization, my company, to participate. And now in a real-time manner, we're able to all work on the same assembly at the same time and evolve the overall design. More importantly, I'm able to understand what each individual is working on. The changes that those individuals make will be synchronized on my machine, just like my changes will be synchronized on theirs. We'll also be able to go off and explore different, let's say, design alternatives. So I'm going to create a branch and only work on that, and everyone else is on the main branch. So we can now have an effective collaborative environment that allows us, again, that rich communication. And so if we take a little example of this little video here, I'm on the left, I'm up here in Canada. My colleague on the right is in Boston. So in this case, what we want to do is Nihal on the right, through Creo Plus, and again, we just pause here. We do have these collaborative tools icons up at the top right. He's going to select one to say, I'm going to create a new collaboration session. He's going to then give it a specific name, and he'll call it check valve. And what he's going to do now is in the folder tree, we could see the check valve created. He's now going to upload data to it. And that data could be checked out from Windchill or from the local machine. What he's going to do now is he's going to say, okay, Mark, I need you to collaborate with me. So now he's going to find that particular collaboration session. He's going to now pull my name from the list of individuals within the organization, and he's going to invite me into this environment. Now on my side, I'm going to click on the collaboration portal. I see the invitation that was sent, and I'm now going to join. So immediately now I can do a file open and open the exact same assembly that Nihal is working on, in essence, that he's uploaded. We've also added this notion of, collaboration, the collaboration graph, showing the evolution of the design and the changes that took place. This is important. You need to understand, where the changes were, who, by whom, when, and effectively be able to track the history of the evolution of the design. So we're going to open up these collaboration graphs. Nihal does it on his, I do it on my session. And this is, as I said, is going to give you that historical record of all the changes that took place. So now if I go and run this further and start to make some modifications. So Nihal in this case is going to add a component, in this case, this plug for the bottom of it. What you'll notice is immediately on my screen, again, I can't see Nihal's screen in reality. I just could see that, oh, Nihal's got there's a check here, a lock. Nihal's working on something. And if I hover over it, I can see who's actually working on it. So I can now identify every component that is being modified by an individual at that exact moment. And then once he's done with the change, we'll see what takes place. So now he's adding it to the assembly, obviously adding the assembly, going through the assembly process. And immediately what it's going to do is it's going to now add it into the collaboration graph. And then more importantly, it's going to automatically synchronize to my machine. So we're all working on the same version of the design. Now I'm going to make a change on my side. Nihal's going to make a change on his. And again, we see the respected lock icons on either machines based upon what each individual is working on. So in this case, Nihal's going to make a change to the height of that component. I'm going to add a user-defined feature. And then once the operation is done, it's going to auto regenerate. More importantly, it's going to auto save. And once the auto save is complete, it's going to then track it in the collaboration graph. And then more importantly, it's going to synchronize to each other's machines. So again, we're continuing to work on the latest version that each one had made modifications to. In this case, what I want to do is go off and do some analysis, a simulation. So I'm actually going to go create a branch. This branch is going to be called Sim in this case, and I'm going to be the one working on it. While everyone else, or in this case, Nihal, is going to continue to evolve the main branch in blue, any of the changes he wants to make. And again, all those changes will be tracked and monitored in the main branch. But in my case, on the left side, I'm actually going to go in and start to perform some simulation. I want to look at, let's say, some stresses that might exist, what modifications that I may need to make to reduce those overall stresses. But again, while I'm doing that in my own sim branch, it's capturing the changes that I might have made. And then any of the changes Nihal is making is going to be tracked in the main branch that he's working on. So we can now start to really go off and focus on, how we can effectively modify, change, analyze, interrogate without necessarily disrupting what everybody else is working on. Let me move forward here. Once I run my simulation, I'm then going to go make some design changes. So let's say I go make a specific change to the diameter. Again, it's going to be tracked. And now what Nihal wants to do is actually go and update and actually select on, let me go back here for a moment. What Nihal wants to do is go select on the top node in the sim branch, which is the purple one, and say, hey, let's see what Mark's working on. And what it'll do is it'll update the configuration based upon the latest sim branch entity. And then what he can do is, if he's interested, he could then merge these together. So now the main branch will take into account all the changes that I've made back into the confines of what everyone else then will be working on. So again, hopefully this gives a sense of how easy it is to collaborate, how easy it is to work together on specific designs, how things are synchronized and updated, how we can create branches to go interrogate or look at specific scenarios, and then more importantly, be able to merge them back together. And when we're done, simply check it back into Windchill as the next iteration. Now, we talk about Windchill. Windchill's important. Today we support both Windchill Plus and Creo Plus, Windchill Plus and Windchill on-prem. And frankly, we will continue to do that. This is sort of new news. I know in the past we talked about that we would only support Creo Plus against on-prem Windchill up to version 13. I will say that that is no longer the case, and we'll continue to support on-prem Windchill beyond Windchill 13. But what's important is to note is that as we are evolving Creo Plus every quarter, a new build is coming out every quarter. You want to make sure that if you are using on-prem Windchill, that the version of on-prem Windchill that you're using is going to be compatible with the build of Creo Plus that comes out tomorrow or next quarter and so forth. So what we've been asked by you as customers and now providing the answer is we want to give you a 12-month window into the future. Meaning I want to give you the sense of what version of Windchill is compatible today with Creo Plus, but I also want to give you insight into the next 3 builds of Creo Plus, which will give you a 12-month view of what you may need to do to update your Windchill to a specific version in over a 12-month period. So it would not be to our benefit if we only gave you a quarterly perspective, a quarterly view, because we realize that the move to a new version of Windchill, whether it's a point release or a major release, is not an overnight activity. So we do want to give you that 12-month view so that you could see, okay, the build in 3 quarters, I need to be at least on this version of Windchill in order to be compatible with Creo Plus. And again, as an admin, the admin will be able to get that through the admin portal. We have a section called compatibility, a matrix where they could go view to the current build and the next 3 builds as it relates to the versions of Windchill that they are compatible with. Okay, just an important note there. And so as we get beyond Windchill 13 and 14 and beyond, again, you'll have that perspective and make the appropriate actions to update Windchill as needed. Now, as far as roadmap, as I said, we are releasing every quarter. We just released the latest one yesterday. It includes some great capabilities, and I look at the enhancements in every build in 2 ways. There's enhancements to Creo, just traditional Creo. And then there's enhancements to the services, to the SaaS, backend and control center capabilities. And both of those are evolving with each build that comes out. So as an example, the one yesterday that we released, we provided an update to, let's say, internet outage. And what I mean by that is if, for example, you're using Creo Plus and the internet goes out, what we've done in the build yesterday is we've increased the, I won't say offline mode, but disconnected mode from what was 30 minutes now to 2 hours. So in theory, if the internet goes out, you have a 2-hour window to try and regain connection, to the Atlas, to the licensed service in order to continue to run Creo Plus. Okay. The build that's going to be coming out in 3 months, in the next quarter, is actually going to be quite a comprehensive build of Creo Plus. It does a few things. First is it's now going to be evolved to be based on Creo 11. So all the functionality that Creo 11 has to offer will be in that next build of Creo Plus. But we've also enhanced things around user enablement, improving, how you work through whether they're interactive tooltips or effective use of the product. We've also improved some of the launching capabilities, creating shortcuts, aspects like that. But when I take a high level look at where we're going, and this slide sort of captures that, the first thing that you should expect in this calendar year is that we now, and more for the administrators, we're now moving away from local config.pro or config.sup, map keys, etc. What we're actually doing is now managing those in Atlas. So, you would migrate your config.pro or config.sup into the admin portal and then be able to associate those to specific groups, individuals, and so forth. So this notion of, local.pros.sups and so forth will cease to exist in Creo Plus. Again, we're expanding the innovation. As I said, the next build will be based on Creo 11. The build after that, so in 6 months, in fact, it's going to be based on Creo 12. And you may say, well, Mark, Creo 12 is not out till April of 2025. And the answer is that's correct. So we are starting to introduce capabilities that are not even yet on-prem into Creo Plus to, again, expand that innovation. So you'll be able to utilize the key capabilities, well before they're actually released on-prem. We do want to enhance telemetry, provide, let's call that Performance Advisor Plus, in a similar way that you experience that with on-prem. And then as we start to look further off into the horizon, we see a big one around streaming. And again, this is really getting back to that lowering the total cost of ownership I mentioned at the beginning. So we want to offer Creo Plus, today as a thick client, and we'll continue to offer it as a thick client installed on your local machine. Let that be for the users that use Creo every day, that need to connect to other applications. But we'll also then start to introduce a streaming offering of Creo Plus that you can use via browser from any machine, anywhere, anytime. And in fact, you could also use a thick client at work, maybe streaming at home, or if you're on the road, streaming and so forth. We're going to be providing both modes to our users and let the user be able to utilize what best meets their needs. We also want to start to look at how we manage customizations. And again, I could define customizations in one of two ways. It could be your own custom toolkit applications that your developer creates in-house, or it could be third-party plugins that you might use as part of your daily operation. So we want to be able to now manage those just like we did with configurations in the SaaS platform. We also want to manage customizations there as well. So that now as an admin, I could say, okay, Nick, who's my expert manufacturing user, I'm going to assign you or make you have access to a toolkit application, maybe a third-party plugin, and have that be downloaded, deployed, utilized if a thick client or utilized in a streaming client going forward. There are a whole set of sort of granular enhancements as well. These aren't just the big ones that we're looking at. There's a whole bunch of other ones that we're addressing, whether it is true offline mode or looking at supporting multiple applications through the control center. So you could be reassured that as we evolve every quarter, as new builds come out, that there will be a plethora of improvements, for you as a Creo Plus user, but also as it relates to other applications as well. And again, those will be accessible to you as soon as that's deployed and pushed out to your machine. Lastly, we realize that, we have a global, customer base, a lot of government based organizations. We are looking at, enhancing Atlas specifically to be FedRAMP certified, GovCloud certified, but also working with other, governments globally to figure out what it means to be certified to be utilized in those specific environments. That is an ongoing activity, and certainly we'll continue to push that. But we are, truly focused on making this be a complement to, our customers, allow them to take advantage of the capabilities, be, up to date on the latest capabilities, and then be able to utilize that in concert with Windchill in other applications. With that, Nick, if there are questions, we could certainly open that up. Otherwise, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, looks like we do have a couple of questions here. So yeah, we'll go ahead and feel free to put those in chat, everybody. And it looks like, yeah, there's a few coming in right now. So we'll start with the first question. Any plans for CodeBeamer and ArborText?
That's a good question. I mean, like we saw on the, excuse me, on the first slide, we're looking at promoting our flagship products, again, Creo, Windchill, and so forth. I don't have, Dan, I don't have the specific answer, about Codebeamer or Arbortext. I will say though that I know those groups are certainly looking at how we can effectively provide, solution, just in general, solutions through the Atlas platform, where it certainly makes sense. That's something I could, follow up with both the Codebeamer and the Arbortext team, and I could certainly reach back out to you.
All right, we have another question. With Creo Plus constantly staying updated to the most recent version, what is the capability interface with older versions? He goes on to say, I have a customer who utilizes Creo 7. Will we be able to share model files back and forth without issue between versions?
Yeah, so this is an ongoing discussion we've had, right? Today, Creo, just frankly, Creo on-prem is upwards compatible. So the challenge that you're describing is no different than on-prem. So if you have a customer that's on Creo 4, you're on Creo 8, your Creo 8 models can't be retrieved in Creo 4, right? Everything is upwards compatible, not backwards compatible. Moving with Creo Plus being always on the latest release, think of that as always being the latest version. So data coming from Creo 4 can be retrieved in Creo Plus, no problem. But if you do need to share your Creo Plus data with a Creo 4 user, you wouldn't be able to provide them the part file or the assembly file. Now there are, means to do so, whether it is through neutral format, so you could do a file save as neutral, and then that could be retrieved in a Creo 4, for example. You can also use standard formats like, IGESTEP and so forth. The other thing that would be of note and good to know is, so let's say you have a supplier. You're on Creo Plus, your supplier happens to be on Creo 4. One of the things that could be done is I could invite an individual from that supplier into my organization, my company's org in the SaaS platform, where it contains my licenses, and I as an admin can manage that. I can invite them in as a guest, and in fact then assign them a license, and then they in turn would be utilizing Creo Plus at the same version that I'm working on. So there's different techniques on that, and maybe worth have a follow-up if interested to talk about those techniques. But yes, those are available. But as far as taking a Creo Plus model back to Creo 4, as I said, that's not supported, nor frankly taking a Creo 8 model back to Creo 4 is not supported either. Okay. There was a question here, Eric was asking. So in the presentation, I noticed that there's no global licenses of Creo, and I appreciate your keen eye to see that. And in fact, there is no global or regional licenses for Creo Plus. So where is on-prem? Am I buying a license that's going to be used in my country and can only be used by people in my country? And if I have individuals that are in, different continents, I need to buy a global license. That's what it is today on-prem. In the context of Creo Plus, it's one license. There's no global, there's no regional. It's one license that would be purchased and then could be utilized by anyone globally. Okay. Ben asked, with Creo Plus constantly staying up to date on the most recent, oh, that we talked about that one. Armit had asked, installation needs admin access. How does that work? How do we get if getting admin access is restricted by IT? So as I mentioned during the presentation, when you install Creo Plus, the control center, and again, it's the control center that's creating the connection back to Atlas. It's the username and password that I would enter into the control center. That's what's going to, determine what entitlement I have, what group am I a member of, and then what's going to be installed locally on my machine. And that control center is installed in the user profiles directory. And more importantly, the Creo Plus that gets deployed and updated automatically is also installed in the user profiles directory. So it's not in program files. It's in a location that the individual has the rights to install. Okay. So you do not need admin access. You do not need an admin to perform the installation. That could be done. Now, you could, and we've talked with a number of customers that have said, okay, well, we don't want the user to download the control center. Well, I said, well, you need it. But he goes, we want to be able to deploy that ourselves. And that's fine. Deploy, on a new laptop that your user is going to get, have the control center already installed. What that would mean is when the user gets the laptop, they're going to log into the control center that's already installed. And what it'll do then is, start to download and install Creo Plus based on that individual's, credentials. So there is a way that, again, can be deployed, but it's at the control center perspective. The installation deployment of Creo Plus will be automated, as I said, through the control center back to Atlas. No admin needed. What if during the validation stage we decide we do not like the new build? There is no option to say I want to stay on build X. I know build Y is going to come out. We're testing it, we're validating it, but I don't really want to go. There's not a choice to say I'm going to stay on a prior version. So I will stress though, before we push it out, before we say, okay, build Y after the 4-week period, we're going to now push it out to all our users. Before we do that, it needs to meet a strict set of quality control so that we make sure that, we're not introducing regressions and other potential issues, that when it gets pushed out, it's met the high threshold of quality that we have. And it will then be pushed out. At the same time, if you discover an issue during the validation phase, again, we're going to evaluate it. We're going to triage it. If we'll fix it during the 4 weeks, we'll fix it. I also want to state, though, and this is an important point, that if we push out the next build, you get it today, for example, and we discover an issue tomorrow, does that mean you need to wait for until next quarter to get that potential issue resolved? And I'm going to say no, because of the nature of how we are pushing it out, how we are providing updates, and how we basically package the deployment of Creo into bite-sized modular chunks. We can actually, if there's a critical issue, a 911 issue, we will actually identify it and we can actually send out an update patch for it midstream, which is very different than what traditionally on-prem has been. So again, I want to reassure you that we are meeting a high degree of quality before we push it out. And if that is 5 weeks, 6 weeks, then let it be that. But you will get that latest release when it does get pushed out. You will not be able to refrain or stay on a prior version. So the question was on pricing. We do have global pricing. They're no different than, how if you're in Germany and you're buying a license of Creo Plus, it'll be in euros versus if you're in North America, it'll be in US dollars. That doesn't change. What we're simply stating, Eric, is that it is a license that if I buy it in my headquarters here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, that's where I'm making my purchases from. I could then make it accessible to my users that happen to be in offices in Shanghai, whatever. So, okay. Any other questions, Nick? Well,
Yeah, looks like one just came in. Can this work with local wind chill, or does it need to be with Wind Chill Plus?
Yeah, so Al, as we were stating earlier, Creo Plus will be supported with both Windchill Plus, certainly, but more importantly, it could also run with on-prem Windchill as well. As I was stating earlier, initially it was up to release 13, and after 13, you needed to move to Windchill Plus, but we've kind of reduce that message to say, we'll support Creo Plus against on-prem Windchill beyond 13, or certainly reaping the benefits of what Windchill Plus can give you as well. Okay.
Okay, that looks like it. Well, thank you, David, for the high-level overview. Or sorry, Mark, thank you so much. Yeah, so visit tristar.com for any additional webinar replays, and more information, and any free trial links. This will go out to everybody automatically, so please feel free to share it with your colleagues on social media. And we thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks so much, Nick. Thanks,
Yep,
everyone.
thank you, everyone. Bye.